Hi, welcome back to Dial of Twang. I'm Dave. I got you zoomed in right away here today for this step two, the second video in this three-part series on essential soloing skills. Now, when the first one was a couple days ago, then this one and the third one will be a couple days from now. But they're all going to end up on their own playlist. And the playlist is called Essential Soloing Skills, something very close to that. I'm not looking at it right now. And there's nothing out. There won't be anything else on that playlist. Just those three videos. So it's like a little mini series that really, keeps you focused on this one progression and building, putting these skills together and coming up with a good solid foundation for your soloing. And this could be helpful, I think and hope, for folks in different stages. Right? If it's something that you're just really getting into, I think it's appropriate the way it's presented for that level. But I think it also includes concepts that you can apply at a bunch of different levels. Okay, so hopefully there's something in there for everybody. Um, let's get right into it. Now, the other day we focused mainly on a couple of triad sequences. Okay, so we went over the progression, kind of the structure of it, and then we played some uh, 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 chord sequences, triad sequences of the progression, but limiting ourselves to like three strings at a time and so forth. So I'm not going to go through all of that today because we want to get into the scale stuff is what we're going to throw in there today and start mixing that in. Okay. So this should still make sense to you if you didn't see that first one, but just so you know, though, all three of them will be on there and you'll be able to go in and just kind of bounce back and forth and do whatever makes sense for you to be working on, right? Not just always what we throw up on YouTube, whatever we're thinking about, right? I was thinking about that the other day. It's like I'll be working on something, and then of course I'll start to drift into that. Hey, I got to make a video about this, and that's cool. It's spontaneous, but I really try to, you know, take myself to task too to see this from your point of view, right? And so this is one of the ways I think that I can make the channel better is do these individual playlists that really focus on something and really stick with it. Okay? So here's a little warm up. Here's the backing track. Same one you'll have at the end of this lesson today. It's just a single strumming guitar. So we can look at the progression real quick. Starts on C, G, A minor, F, C, G, F. Now, the other day, just for a quick warm up, we did something like. Okay. So, no, the it's not as important right there the order of how I picked the notes and things, right? It's just sort of arbitrary, right? But it was that those shapes. Okay. And we really drilled into that in that first video. So if you haven't seen that one, that's what that one was kind of about. Now, today it's going to be more of a linear thing with some scale stuff. And this is going to be fun and some bending and, some kind of a minor pentatonic and major pentatonic stuff that many of you will be familiar with to different degrees. But we're going to apply that to this. And then in the third video, we're going to kind of put together a solo and really, start stylizing it and stuff. And that's the game plan. So today, the two scales, and they're really, they're overlapping fully. So basically the C major scale, you know, the do, re, mi for C. Okay, and the C major pentatonic, but also happens to be the same notes as A minor pentatonic. Okay, there's some lessons, videos and stuff on this channel that kind of get into the little bit more of the theory behind that. Today we're just going to kind of take that at face value. C major and A minor are relative in what we refer to as the relative major and minor. They're made up of the same notes, just starting on different degrees of that C major scale. So another way to look at it is that the A minor natural minor scale is the sixth mode in the key of C. Don't get hung up on that right now, right? You're not going to have to, you know, take a quiz on any of that to do what we're about to do here today. So the long and the short of it is we can use an A minor pentatonic all day long over this. And if you're already somewhat familiar with that, and you're like, hey, all right, A minor pentatonic, man, I got that. Let's go. That's cool. Put your track on and just kind of warm up on that. Just kind of experiment with what parts of that scale, you know, really feel good to you. Now, I'm going to leave that on for a second. I'm going to play it by definition, more technically, as a C major pentatonic. So I'm going to start on C, play those same notes, but in the same sequence, but starting at a different point. Okay, now you see how much I was leaning on this note, that's C, and this one. Okay, the note's D is the second note in that C major scale. But it also happens to be a chord tone that's in the triad of some of the other chords. Now, you know, now that I've said that, when you play that C major scale, they're all the notes in that scale are related in some way by being a triad component of something in this progression, right? So it's very versatile. You can really, you know, we're going to do this in a minute. The same thing we did with the pentatonics is we're just going to kind of, you know, investigate the major scale as well. But bear with me for just a second right here. This real quick analysis on this note C and D. So if the C chord, that one's pretty easy. The C is the root of a C triad. Okay, now the next chord in the progression is G. So of course a G is going to be, you know, nice over that. It's going to sound okay over that G. And a lot of other notes in that, really anything theoretically in that minor pentatonic is going to work okay. But to get more of a conversational phrasing, both melodically and in your timing, if you lean on roots and fifths, it's a good starting point for all of this. Now, I don't want to confuse it because it's not as complicated as it sounds. It's easier to demonstrate than it is to talk about. But if we do a little bit of work real quick on this G, a G major triad, the second chord in the progression, that D is the fifth of that G. That's going to sound really good. And we're going to test that here in just a second. Then when they go to the A minor, the third chord in the progression, that C shows up again. It's the third of the A minor. Okay, and this is where your triad stuff from the other day, it's all going to start coming together. You'll see. And there's no definite science to what I'm telling you right now. I'm just kind of playing notes that I think feel good and then kind of back engineering it to say, hey, is that a chord tone of that triad? Like, why does that sound so rich? So landing on that note or starting on it. So you can go through the progression like that, but there's no set scientific way you have to do it. Okay. But what you end up with is, and if we keep going, we can say the G again, and then the F is the only chord that gets added in there in addition to the three that we just discussed. So we got C, over the C is the root, D, over the G is the fifth of the G, back to leaning on the C note over the A minor, it's the third of C, the minor third. That really gives you that minor pentatonic sound, right? And then when the F shows up, is one of the notes in an F triad one of these two notes that we've been dealing with? And I'll give you a second. Yes, it's the fifth for F. So there's a little kind of theory game you can play right there. That's going to sound really cool too. It's not just a game, right? But check it out. That's all good. Now, bend this one a little bit. And then I'm just going down to this A as kind of the other part of that box to fill that in. Okay, now let me mention something real quick. Everything I just said about that doesn't mean that that's what you need to be doing and thinking when you're using this scale all the time. It's you put it under the microscope, then you back away from the microscope, okay? But you get in there and do the work. You learn your instrument. You learn the musical system that's supporting what sounds good in what you're doing right now. And then you let yourself go, okay? So and be more open and exploring with, trying out the different note sequences. But part of why I took the time to spell all that out for you is so that you can see how you don't need a lot of notes to play something that sounds really good. That was the real point. See, now we can already get into the stylization, right? The repetition, the bending, the bouncing, and playing the same note several times in a row. Okay? Nothing more important, in my view, about improvisational guitar than the sort of thing that I just demonstrated right there. I love the science. I love to talk about the modes and all the sequences and all the key studies and so forth. And I study that stuff. I'm not an expert on it. I watch other channels and seek information from players that are way more educated than myself in that stuff, and that's my hobby. But what I hear from people all the time and have for years, I just want to play something. I just want to feel it. That's all I want to do. I don't want to get caught up in all of it right now. I just want to play my guitar. That's what we're doing, and I hope it's working out for you. Now, you kind of just take those concepts and just expand to using more of that minor pentatonic scale. Okay, so, I'm fumbling around a little bit, but I'm kind of doing this very spontaneously. So if I want to bend, I had my pinky there. I'm like, yeah, I don't bend good with my pinky, so I kind of shifted over. Okay, that's a big part of what this part two is about. That's a workout right there. You get in there, and I don't care if you use 3 notes, 2 notes, you'll never run out of stuff to do. It's so cool. It's so fun, right? And it so takes the demystifies it, or to me, it actually sort of actually mystifies it. Like, wow, how can 2 notes do that much? But it sort of distills all this other data and information about all the stuff that we think we're supposed to know before we can play our guitar. It's most popular styles can be boiled down to some pretty basic concepts like this. So that's a good routine. And hopefully that all makes sense. You got something to hang out with and do using that minor pentatonic. And then just putting the diatonic C major scale in there with it. And I did that just a little bit at the end there. I don't know if you caught me. I went a couple times. I slid down there. Well, no, that's not in the pentatonic scale. I'm out of bounds. That's right. So hopefully I was doing it in places that my ear was pulling me to that notes that are also in that C major scale. Probably was ending up on that one a lot when I went to the G, because that's the third. The note is B. It's the major seventh of the C scale, but it's the major third of that G. So don't take my word for it. We got to investigate. Okay, and just that was I kind of went more into the substance of that part of it. To warm up, you could do the same sort of thing that we did with the minor pentatonic. Just do an open exploration of that C scale. Okay, now those double stops, we call them, where I'm playing more than one string at a time there, going to do a little bit of that in part 3. That's a little bit of a preview. Your routine on this is warm up with the chords. If you've seen part 1, and you warm up with some of those triad sequences too. And don't want to try to stir it all together today, because what I just showed you is there's work to do on that for most folks out there. For all of us, I take that back. There is work to do for all of us using the skills that I just mentioned. It matters not what level or how long we've been playing. We can all keep stylizing it more, right? So warm up with the chords, maybe go through some of the triad sequences from last time, but to stay on track with this particular lesson, warm up with the A minor pentatonic, and then do a little bit of analysis on maybe kind of where you're landing and stuff. But remember to put in your bends and just be relaxed, and then do some warming up and exploration with that C major scale. Where you go from just kind of playing the scale tones to like realizing that those shapes of the triads are right there with you, right? Okay. There's no exact, map that I'm showing you of what notes to play in what order here, but I'm showing you, I think, I'm confident, pretty solid clues about where to look for them, okay? And hopefully that's something that's fun for you to do the exploration on that and do the work a lot on your own with that, and just refer to what I'm showing you as kind of the guardrails, the guidelines of it. A lot of folks are like, oh man, I just wish I had some tab for that, and I just really I love that solo that you played at the beginning. Can you just like do that, And I'm gonna hold my ground on what I just said about that. I don't mean to be presumptuous and like kind of, that might be kind of aggravating sometimes. Like, man, just show it, just write it out. Well, as you just saw, I haven't written it out myself, right? I could, but the things that we're talking about are so open to your individual language and creativity. I just feel like it's worth it to just kind of keep challenging yourself, to keep going. Don't get discouraged. But I also want to give you things that are really solid for you to build on, right? Not just kind of abstractions, right? So hopefully this 3-part series is really going to give you a little workspace to put a lot of this together in. Let me know how it goes.